that has worked for many years to build an infrastructure that allows for the exchange of data and control amongst systems in a building. And over the last 5, 6, 8 years, maybe beyond the building, through web services components that allow you to take building stuff, if you will, into this thing, this Internet of Things that I am going to define for you. Because I can't do any more on this talk until I say something about what that is, right? So for the purpose of what I'm talking about, it really is the combination of connected stuff that generates data that can be served in a platform that's accessible from anywhere through the cloud, which I'm not going to define because that would not work. But I want to define it that way because I think it's important to recognize that those components, connected things, exchanging data and the ability to influence outcomes, or control as we like to call it, accessible and reachable, if you will, from anywhere by a very large community of people who might have interest in knowing about it or adding interesting value to it, is what's going to be interesting going forward in this industry. Now, there's a couple reasons you might do that. Right? There's reasons you might connect buildings to the cloud and give access to people with creative ideas. The first and most likely is, especially since some of us are kind of engineering background, is just because we can. That's a perfectly fine reason to do things. We've done things for that reason for many years. Sometimes it doesn't go very fast or very far, but another reason that I hear a lot is that when we do that, we get access to big data about building systems, and big data will bring big insights, and that'll be a wonderful thing. Okay, that's good. It's a little speculative and kind of engineering-ish also, but okay. And maybe the third one is because we have those insights, we can run our buildings more efficiently. Okay, that's a good thing. All of those are fine, and all of them are pretty consistent with the historical direction of the industry. Right? We get a little better at this stuff, buildings get more efficient, and we adopt technology at the rate of a turtle, give or take. Because the drivers behind those goals are not very compelling. Well, at least not for the people that have to pay for it. But it's very compelling for engineers to do great things because we can. Doesn't do quite the same thing for a CFO. The idea that we can get great insights, but without being able to say what they are yet is, we know that somehow intuitively, but it doesn't necessarily do a good return on investment calculation when you're asking for capital. And even things that are very clear, like predictive diagnostics, you can demonstrate that saves money, but business models don't necessarily calculate that the way we would. Right? There are lots of people who say, that's fine, I'll fix it when it fails, thank you very much. Why would I pay extra to know early? I'm not going to do anything about it until it fails. So there's a lot of challenge in making the industry go quickly with that set routing point. What I find exciting about this move to applications that can live and get developed much faster in the cloud area than we ever could do in building space, and the connectivity of data there, is that it opens up the opportunity, at least, to move from an industry and automation platforms that are driven from efficiency to adding value. If we could say what we're going to do adds value, real commercial value, we get a different audience. Right? We talk to CEOs instead of just CFOs. If we could say, hey, Mr. Hospital owner, people will go home sooner if you put in this automation platform, they would pay attention in a way they won't pay attention when you say you can save some money, or even you can be more socially responsible. You can tell a retailer, you will sell more, and you'll sell more of the things you really want to sell. That's much more compelling than you'll save some money on energy. And I think that's the world we're moving to, because I think a part of what's coming out of left field to this industry is automation that's driven by the value creation potential of lighting. Right? As we move to LED lighting, the opportunity to make lighting dynamic becomes possible to fairly inexpensive to nearly free as we go forward. And there's lots of science that says light affects people. You know, I worked for Philips for a while. I went to the lighting labs where they have this big room and they can show you pretty clearly, very viscerally, light affects people, but you get the same effect by spending a week in Seattle and then a week in, say, Phoenix. Right? Light affects people. We haven't been able to leverage that because the cost of making lighting dynamic has always been very high. It's not going to be high anymore. So controls projects that start with lighting, that want to add value to a building by managing lighting differently, will become the path to the cloud, to the Internet of Things, for the whole building. And that's not what you're seeing here in this show as much. because lighting shows up much less here than other places. So I'd argue when you go look at what lighting is doing and recognize that could be the path to really changing the pace of automation. I can give you lots of examples: healthcare, retail, education, provable outcomes that when you manage light, you can change the commercial value of what you're doing. And I believe that kind of driver is much more likely to move us to the Internet of Things at an accelerated pace than anything we can do in our traditional approach to justifying projects.
Thank you very much, Andy. That was great. I'm going to allow the opportunity for the thought leaders to interact with each other. So if anybody wants to add a comment to that before we move on to the next thought leader, later on we'll open it up to the floor. And I just want this to kind of break into a dialogue, and you've got a tremendous resource up here, and I want to offer you access to that. So is there anything that anybody wants to add to Andy's before I go on to Mark?
I'm going to add something. So Andy, you mentioned big data, and we've all have heard it, we read it, and everything else. I believe that big data is fine to say it, but can we all really use big data? It's not about big data, it's about smart data. And data that's relevant to what we are trying to accomplish, the value that we need to deliver, and things like that. So I see us as an industry and the word big data sort of drifting away, and smart data or some other kind of term that really is data that's relevant, that's now, that's happening, that's stuff that I can really use to create value. So I just wanted to add that. And then one other thing, you know, we hear a lot about the Internet of Things and whatever, and you get 50 people in a room, tell me what the Internet of Things is, you'll get 65 different definitions or things like that. And where I'm kind of coming from this is that there is the Internet of Things, and there are things on the Internet. And this whole world is being clouded by things on the Internet that have nothing to do with the Internet things, bringing in Andy's model of data, analytics, all this, adding value. So that, again, Internet of Things versus just a device or something out there being on the Internet.